Today, I want to talk to you about the life of Darian Rommel, a spiritual teacher, author, and guide whose work has profoundly impacted countless lives through his deep wisdom and transformative insights. In his biography, My Life Here: Spiritual Experiences of Sensory Planes, Darian shares his personal journey, marked by moments of introspection, resilience, and spiritual awakening. Let us take a glimpse into that story. Darian Rommel sat quietly in his meditation room, surrounded by the faint scent of lavender. The room was a sanctuary, a space where he often connected with realms unseen, seeking guidance and clarity. This evening, however, felt different. A sense of profound urgency pulsed through him, as if the universe itself was inviting him to share his journey, a journey that had once been fraught with confusion and doubt, only to transform into one of light and understanding. The story of Darian's spiritual awakening began in the quiet suburbs of Buenos Aires, Argentina. As a child, he often felt out of place, sensing energies and emotions that others seemed oblivious to. He would watch the world with eyes wide open, fascinated and overwhelmed by its complexity. "Why do I feel so much?" he once asked his mother, but she dismissed his question as a vivid imagination. Yet deep inside, he knew there was more to life than what met the eye. It wasn't until his mid-20s, after a series of inexplicable events, that Darian's spiritual path began to unfold. A recurring dream had haunted him for weeks, a vision of a radiant being enveloped in light, whispering words he couldn't quite grasp. The dream was both comforting and unsettling, leaving him with an unshakable urge to understand its meaning. One evening, after weeks of restless nights, Darian decided to meditate. Sitting cross-legged on the floor at his bedroom, he closed his eyes and focused on his breath. Minutes passed, and then, without warning, he felt a warm presence surround him. The room seemed to dissolve, replaced by a vast expanse of light. A voice, gentle yet powerful, resonated within him. "Darian, you are not alone. Your path is one of awakening, and through your journey, others will find their way." This was the beginning of his connection with beings of light, guides who would accompany him through the challenges and revelations of spiritual growth. They taught him that awakening is not a single moment, but a series of steps, each one peeling back the layers of fear, ego, and attachment to reveal the soul's true essence. In the weeks that followed, Darian's life began to change in subtle but undeniable ways. He found himself drawn to mysticism and spirituality, as though invisible hands were guiding him toward answers he didn't yet know he was seeking. Strangers approached him with uncanny messages, and moments of synchronicity became a daily occurrence. But along with these blessings came challenges. Darian quickly realized that awakening was not merely a state of bliss, but also an unearthing of shadows. Memories he had buried deep began to surface. Painful experiences from his childhood, unresolved fears, and a profound sense of unworthiness. "Why is this happening to me?" he often wondered, feeling as though the universe had placed a magnifying glass over his soul. One night, as he sat in the backyard, a realization struck him like lightning. Awakening wasn't about escaping the pain, but embracing it. His guides whispered gently into his heart, reminding him that every fear, every doubt was an opportunity to heal. They told him, the light only shines brightly when the darkness is understood. Guided by this wisdom, Darian began to approach his struggles with curiosity rather than resistance. He learned to sit with his emotions, allowing them to rise and fall like waves in the ocean. Meditation became his anchor, a daily practice through which he connected to the stillness within. It was during one such meditation that Darian received a profound vision. He saw himself standing in a vast desert, the sun blazing overhead. In his hands he held a small seed. A voice echoed around him. This seed is your soul's potential. To awaken fully, you must nurture it with love, patience, and trust. The journey is long, but the fruit is eternal. This vision became a metaphor for his awakening. He understood that every step on the spiritual path, whether joyful or painful, was an act of planting and nurturing the seed of his soul. Over time, Darian began to notice subtle yet profound changes within himself. His reactions to the world softened. Situations that once triggered frustration or fear now seemed like fleeting ripples on the surface of a vast ocean. He realized that awakening was not about escaping the storms of life, but learning to sail through them with grace. His guides continued to communicate, often during quiet moments of introspection or meditation. One night, as Darian gazed at the stars, a familiar presence made itself known. "Darian," the voice began, "there will come a time when you must share what you've learned. Awakening is not an isolated path, it is a collective journey. Your experiences will serve as a beacon for others seeking their own light." At first, the idea terrified him. How could he, someone who still felt so human, so imperfect, guide others? Yet, deep within, he knew this was his purpose. Awakening wasn't about being flawless, it was about being authentic, embracing both the light and the shadows within. Time passed and life led him to meet the host of a radio show who, upon discovering Darian's gifts, did not hesitate to invite him to join the program. It was a nationally broadcasted radio station. During the show, people would call in to ask their questions live, and Darian would use his clairvoyance to respond based on what he perceived. The program aired on Tuesdays and Fridays, from midnight to 5 in the morning. In this way, he began to help and guide others, both in spiritual matters and in everyday life issues. This experience allowed him to further develop his mediumship abilities and gain the confidence he needed to fully dedicate himself to a spiritual life. Shortly after starting his work on the radio, listeners began reaching out to him to request private sessions. Thus began another chapter of his life, where he conducted 1-hour private sessions serving as a channel to convey messages from the planes of light to the earthly plane. It was during one of these sessions that Darian realized the universality of the awakening process. Though each person's journey was unique, the themes were strikingly similar: the longing for meaning, the fear of letting go, the joy of discovering inner peace. One participant, a young woman named Sophia, shared her struggles with self-doubt. "I feel like I'm stuck," she confessed. "No matter how much I meditate or pray, I can't seem to move forward." Darian smiled gently, recalling his own moments of despair. Awakening isn't linear, he told her. It's a spiral. Sometimes it feels like we're going in circles, but with each loop, we rise a little higher. Trust the process. Every step, even the difficult ones, is part of your growth. Sophia's eyes filled with tears, but there was a glimmer of hope in her expression. In that moment, Darian understood the power of connection. Sharing his journey didn't just heal others, it healed him too. As the months passed, each session became a mosaic of shared vulnerability, where walls of fear and doubt crumbled under the weight of authenticity and love. One evening, as he was giving a spiritual talk to a group, Darian felt a surge of energy unlike anything he had experienced before. A golden light seemed to envelop the room, and he sensed the presence of countless beings, radiating peace and wisdom. The guides spoke through him, their words flowing effortlessly as if they had been waiting for this moment. "You are all here because your souls have heard the call," the voice began, resonating deeply within each participant. Awakening is not a destination but a remembrance. It is the unveiling of who you have always been, divine, infinite, and interconnected. The pain you feel, the struggles you endure, are the veils being lifted, one by one. The room was silent, yet tears flowed freely. For many, it was the first time they felt truly seen, not just as individuals, but as souls on a shared journey. After the session, a man named Elias approached Darian. His weathered face bore the lines of a life marked by hardship, but his eyes glimmered with newfound hope. "I've carried so much anger," Elias confessed. "For years I thought awakening was for others, people stronger, better, more deserving. But tonight I felt something shift. Maybe I can begin again." Darian placed a hand on Elias's shoulder, feeling the raw sincerity of his words. "You're not beginning again," he said. "You're simply remembering who you are. Awakening doesn't require perfection, only willingness." These moments became the foundation of Darian's work. He saw that awakening wasn't about preaching or fixing others. It was about holding space for them to rediscover their light. In doing so, his own journey deepened, revealing layers of compassion and wisdom he hadn't known existed. But awakening, as Darian knew well, was not without its trials. The more he guided others, the more he was called to confront his own shadows. Old fears resurfaced, moments of doubt crept in, and the weight of his role sometimes felt overwhelming. Yet each challenge brought with it a gift, a reminder that the path was not his alone to carry. One night, exhausted and seeking solace, Darian returned to his meditation room. He closed his eyes, silently calling out to his guides. Almost instantly, the familiar warmth surrounded him. "Darian," the voice said, "you are the bridge, not the destination. Your role is not to provide answers, but to illuminate the path. Trust that the light you share will ripple far beyond what you can see." The words lifted a burden he hadn't realized he was carrying. In that moment, Darian understood that awakening was not about arriving at some ultimate truth, but about walking the path with humility and courage, lighting the way for others while continuing to learn and grow himself. His purpose was clear: to serve as a bridge between worlds, to share his light unapologetically, and to trust that every step taken in love and truth would leave an eternal mark on the souls he encountered. If you want to learn more about Darian Rummel, you can read his biography, My Life Here: Spiritual Experiences of Sensory Planes,